Niin minäpä tässä teen tämmöisen haastatteluvideon tämmöisestä Vince McCannista, joka pääsi Irti Saatanan Otteesta. Vince McCann oli elämässään tilanteessa, jossa valo ja pimeys olivat vaihtaa paikkaa. Pimeys hallitsi Harmittomalta ajanvietteeltä tuntuva puuhastelu okkultismin teemoilla muuttui todelliseksi. Onko pahoja, henkiä, olemassa? Voivatko ne riivata ihmisiä, jos niinkään, miten niiden otteesta pääsee irti? Irti Saatanan Otteesta on hätkähdyttävä tositarina englantilaisesta miestä, joka kavereita saadakseen ajautui saatanan palojen porukkoihin ja kietoutui lopulta pimeyden paaloihin. Pelekko ja kauhu hallitsivat hänen elämänsä, eivät ne itsemurhan partille. Sitten hän kuuli rakkaudesta. Tiemme pimeydestä valon oli vaikea ja vaarallinen. Mutta viimein Vince McCann pääsi valoon, jossa ei ole pelkoa. Mielikseen ja löysi Jeesuksen. Ja tuli usko ja otti Jeesuksen elämänsä vapahtajana. Sitten mä luen tästä joidenkin alkusanoja tähän kirjaan. Monet haluavat viitata kintalla koko pahojen henkien maailmalle, mutta siinä mukana olevalle se on totisinta totta. Viisen tarina osoittaa, että vaikka saatana vaikuttaa voimakkaalta, hän ei ole kaikki voipa. Se rohkaisee monia, jotka tarvitsevat vapautusta salaopin pauloista. Doug Harris. Sitten lukemattomat ovet johtavat saloppiin vaaroihin ja liian monet aikamme ihmiset kulkevat niistä, varsinkin nuoret ja haavoittuvaiset. Sen takia pidän todella tervetulleena Vince McCannin kertomusta hänen lankeemuksestaan pimeyteen ja nousemisestaan kristinuskon valon ja elämään. Kevin Logan, eli se löysi Jeesuksen elämänsä. Haluan esittää kiitokseni seuraaville henkilöille, jotka olivat tukemassa minua tämän kirjan kertoisen aikana. Vaimolle Donnalle sekä lapsille Nathanille ja äitivaatteille, jotka osoittavat suurta kärsivällisyyttä ja antavat minun kaikissa rauhassa saattaa työni päätöksen. Pastori Mike Hainesille ja kaikille seurakuntiensille, elämäkäynnille ja hänen tarkistusluusten käyttämästä ajasta. Erityiskiitokseni Stan Smithille hänen omistautumiensa tähän työhön. Hänen suuremmasta panoksestaan lopullisen käsityksen toimittamisessa. Omistan tämän menneen edesmenemisen nimen William McCannin muistolle. Kaipaan häntä suorasti enkä koskaan unohda. Koska todistuksena ei ole luonteeltaan erittäin järkyttävää, olen kokenut oikeaksi laatiettavan lyhyen julkilausuman omistautua Jumalalle. Minä Vince McCann julistan Jumalan edessä, että kaikki tämä kertominen on totta. Tässä kertomuksen mukana olleet lukuiset todistajat voidaan koska tahansa kutsua vahvistavan todistuksen oikeellisuus. Minulla ei ole mitään salattavaa, kaikki on kerrottu siten kuin on tapahtunut, olkoon Jumalan talouden ilmoitus. Joidenkin tässä kertomuksessa mainittujen ihmisten nimet on muutettu elinsä henkilöisyydensä suojelemiseksi. Kun olet tekemisissä kriisin kanssa, minun ei pitäisi juuri hämmästyä, jos kohtaat pyhän hengen Jumalan voimallisen läsnäolon, joka voi muuttaa elämäsi antamalla siihen ilon rauhan. Kun olet tekemisissä lamuopin kanssa astrologisesta buddhalaisuuteen, sinun ei vastaavasti pitäisi hämmästyä, jos huomaat painiskelasi epäpyhän hengen kanssa, joka ei tehdä elämästäsi helvetin. Salapoin vaaroihin johtaa lukemattomia ja liian monet ihmiset kulkevat niistä huolettomina, varsinkin nuoret ja haavoittuvaiset. Sen takia pidän todella tervetulleen Vince McCannin kertomusta hänen lankemuksestaan salopin pimeyteen ja nousemisestaan kristinuskon valon ja elämään. Milloin oli etuoikeus tavata Vince televisiostudiossa, kun molemmat yritimme taivuttaa noidaksi kääntyneen niin yrittävät palauttaa jonkun tämmöisen papillisen kirkkoherran palamaan noidaksi kääntyneen kirkkoherran palamatta käsin kaikki valtion rakastaan Jumalan luo, jota hän ei olisi ollut koskaan tullut todella tuntemaan. Vince on maltinen, älykäs ja myötätuntoinen mies, joka on syvästi huolissaan siitä vainosta, jota salausoi oppia aiheuttaa brittiläisessä yhteiskunnassa. Tästä voi jälleen esittää oman tarinansa kertomuksessa. Olkoon, että se auttaisi uskoisi tuntuvan syvemmin taistelun, jota he käyvät, ja estäisi kulkemasta salaopin vaarallisista ovista. Kevin Logan. Ja siinäpä sitten laitetaan tähän aluksi. Niin voitte kuunnella tuon haastattelun sen tämän kirjan kirjoittajan.
Hello everybody, Julian Charles here of themindrenewed.com, coming to you as usual from the depths of the Lancashire countryside here in the UK, and welcome to TMR number 314, which is a conversation, or part of a conversation, with Vince McCann, an evangelist who has been on the programme a couple of times before. It's great to speak to him again. Now, I'm putting out today just part of that conversation, maybe just over half, I'm not sure, simply because I have, well, two reasons really. One, I have run out of time to do the editing because we're just about to go off on a short holiday, a short family holiday. But number two, because the editing is such that it's taking a great deal of time to get it done, because we had a lot of technical problems during this conversation. We kept losing connection between each other, and you can imagine what that's like, then trying to pick up the conversation and then trying to edit it to make it sound as if it's as natural and listenable to as possible. Now, I've left some of the problems with the connection in the conversation just to add verisimilitude, but yeah, I wanted it to sound as easy to listen to as possible and not distracting, because of course it's really difficult to listen to something where you've got people cutting out and going, hello Vince, are you there? Oh yeah, I'm here. Oh, what were you talking about? Oh yeah, that's right, you were saying such and such. Oh yeah, let me pick up there. It gets really boring after a while, so I've had to do lots of stitching together. It's taken quite a long time. So I've got to a point where I've run out of time, and I thought I really would like to put out the first part of this conversation. So I'll say no more about what the conversation is, because of course I introduce it in the normal way. So here it is, the first part of my recent conversation with Vince McCann. Hello everybody, Julian Charles here of themindrenewed.com, coming to you as usual from the depths of the Lancashire countryside here in the UK. And today I'm delighted to welcome back to the programme, after a gap of several years, Vince McCann, who joined us in the past to talk about his dramatic testimony of coming to faith in Jesus Christ. And also he joined us a little later than that for an interview on the Ouija board. One Halloween, way back. Not on the merits of the Ouija board, I might add, but the dangers thereof. Vince's various online ministries can be found at YouTube, the channel being Chesno1969, which is, and I'm quoting from this, a Christian channel dealing with apologetics, evangelism, examining other religious views and other matters of interest to the Christian community, and also on Facebook, where there are a couple of groups there that he manages, one called Spirit Entity Harassment Support Group, and the other called Sharing Evangelistic Ideas to Reach People for Christ on Facebook. And of course, all of those will be in the show notes as usual. Vince, welcome back to the show. It's great to be speaking to you again after all this time.
Yeah, it's been a long time, Julian. Thanks for having me today. I much appreciate it. Really look forward to today's discussion very much indeed. Thank you for having me.
It's a great delight. I very much look forward to it as well. And I'm especially grateful to you for joining us on your week off. You're supposed to be on holiday, aren't you, at the moment?
Yeah, but really, in a way, this is almost like having a holiday talking to you, because my house is so crazy at the moment with children running wild everywhere.
Good. So we're going to be in holiday mode, talking about these things.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So generally speaking, how are things going? Because we haven't spoken for such a long time. How's life? How are you doing?
Not too bad, yeah. Everything's plodding along as usual. I'm still working in the day job, I work with homeless people. Been doing that job now, for 24 years now.
Right.
So I only ever thought I'd be passing through, and here I am 24 years later still doing that job. So it's rewarding, right. It's rewarding, but it can be difficult at times.
Do you work in different towns and cities as well?
No, just the one town at the moment. Right. But I have worked in different towns. They just keep me in the one town at the moment, yeah.
Right, okay. So we're going to be chatting today about your evangelism, your sort of street evangelism among people who are involved in various religions, particularly new religious movements, let's say, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, although actually I suppose they're not really new anymore, are they? They go back quite a way now. You seem to specialise in talking to Jehovah's Witnesses, so I suspect that a lot of what we talk about today will be centred in that. And the reason why I've invited you really is because, frankly, I am really impressed by the way that you do that. I've been following your YouTube channel for several years now, and I really do admire the way that you interact with people on the street. And I think there's a lot that we can all learn from your experience over the years, including me. And in fact, I admitted to something before we started speaking on air that you corrected me on in my thinking. So maybe that will come up. So let's start off then with a little bit more about you, because it'll be such a long time since many people heard from you last. So you weren't brought up as a Christian, were you? Can you tell us a bit about your background and how you came to Christ?
Yeah, no, I wasn't brought up a Christian. Although my father did teach us to have a belief in God. He was a Roman Catholic, but very nominal indeed. Didn't really practice it, didn't go to church. But we did have that foundation. And that really was a strong foundation. And I think when I was younger, you'll find this yourself as well, Julian, I imagine, is that our schools were a lot more Christian, weren't they? They had assemblies where there'd be hymns and prayers. So I think all of that did lay a good, strong base within my life towards God. But then, obviously, the teenage years come along, like a lot of us.
Oh, yes.
And we discover girls, and we discover alcohol, and other things that we shouldn't really be getting involved in, that could create problems for us. But because of the spiritual dimension in my life that was already there, I started to drift towards being interested in paranormal things like ghosts and UFOs, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, all that kind of stuff. But I noticed when I bought literature on those subjects, there would be advertisements on books to do with the occult.
Oh, right.
Very, very subtle, really, the way the devil draws you in. It's very incremental steps that he likes to take people towards the slippery slope. The occult books that the advertisements would be showing to me would be ones on like very light occult, shall we say, like horoscopes and astral projection, psychics, things like that.
Right, yeah.
So I get interested in that kind of thing. But then when I buy that literature, I would notice there would be advertisements in those books for things that were even stronger again, like witchcraft.
Right.
And some of it is quite dark. I ended up getting into quite dark occult literature, really, and practicing spells in my room, setting up an altar.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and I did see results. I mean, it did work. I mean, these things do work. But obviously it comes with a price. And some quite horrible things started to happen to me eventually. Yeah, so it wasn't good.
No, and it's interesting you say how some of these things in various publications that could look almost benign can actually lead step by step in a darker direction. And I guess you can sort of end up in a dark place and wonder how you ever got there in the first place, I suppose. Yeah, indeed. Exactly. So how did you then make that step towards Christ from that? You obviously had this background, but that wasn't sufficient, was it, to evangelize your own past? Yeah,
well, I ended up, carrying on with practicing the occult stuff. And I got involved with somebody that I knew from about a year or two previous. And we had a friendship, shall we say, a young lady. And we ended up being sort of interested in this subject together somewhat. But one thing led to another, and it became apparent to me that there was a lot of spiritual problems with this person, shall we say, and it just led me down a very dark path indeed. And both of us ended up in this situation that we had no control over, and there was dark forces that were unleashed, which nearly destroyed me. I mean, it was horrific, it really was horrific. Very, very dark time indeed. And I actually didn't think I would get out of this situation at all. I'd sort of resigned myself to the fact that I would end up dead the way it was going. It was that bad. During this time, though, my brother had become a Christian, and I didn't really know early on that he'd become a Christian, but him and a church that he was going to at the time were praying for me. And my father, who was a very weak Catholic, really, shall we say, he went to the local Anglican church, and they were praying for me as well, because he didn't understand what it was. And I hadn't been home for a long time as well. So he had this church praying for me, a Church of England church, and it was this other church that my brother was going to, a Pentecostal church. And it was during that time when things changed, and I was able to get away from this person quite dramatically, only by the grace of God. And I ended up becoming a Christian, and I had a really powerful conversion experience where I went to the church that my brother was going to, and I knew that I was a sinner. I knew that I'd offended God and I needed to repent. So I repented of my sin, and I asked Christ